Assalamu alaikum, good evening and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Patel. Tonight, we focus on Sudan, a nation in crisis, where a devastating civil war between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, has pushed the country to the brink of collapse. Over 12 million people have been displaced and more than 30 million need urgent humanitarian assistance. Famine looms and entire communities are being wiped out. In recent days, the Sudanese army has made gains in parts of Khartoum, but those advances come with disturbing reports of war crimes, including mass execution of civilians in the capital's southern areas. Aid agencies warn that this is now the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Yet, international attention remains limited. Let's look at this report by John Rees giving us an update on the situation.
The Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, seem on the brink of winning the long-running civil war against their Rapid Support Force, RSF, opponents. The SAF seem to have taken control of the capital Khartoum and vowed to crush their enemies. The RSF were pushed back from most parts of Khartoum by the Sudanese army during a devastating war that has lasted 2 years. Sudanese Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan ruled out any reconciliation with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in a video statement on Saturday in which he vowed to crush the group. Earlier on Saturday, the army said that it had taken control of a major market in Khartoum's twin city of Omdurman, which had previously been used by the RSF to launch attacks during the devastating two-year-old war. The Sudanese army is also claiming to control most parts of the capital. The RSF has said that it will retake the capital. The UN issued a desperate plea for the killing to be brought to an end. Sief Mengango, from the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, had this to say.
We are appalled by reports of widespread extrajudicial killings of civilians in Khartoum following its recapture by the Sudanese Armed Forces on 26 March. The UN Human Rights Office has reviewed multiple horrific videos posted on social media showing armed men executing civilians in cold blood and documented a disturbing rise in online hate speech and incitement to violence, with lists of individuals accused of collaborating with the RSF posted online. We have also received credible reports of numerous incidents of summary executions of civilians in several areas of Khartoum on apparent suspicions that they were collaborating with the Rapid Support Forces. We urge the commanders of the Sudanese Armed Forces to take immediate measures to put an end to arbitrary deprivation of life. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk calls on Sudan promptly to launch independent, transparent, and effective investigations into these incidents in line with relevant international law.
Most Sudanese, like these worshippers celebrating Eid, long for peace. The conflict has cost tens of thousands of lives and displaced 12 million people, making it one of the most bloody and destructive wars in the world. But just as Sudan looks as if it might have peace within its grasp, civil war is threatening to break out again in South Sudan, the state which broke away from Sudan in 2011. The UN General Secretary, Antonio Guterres, said this.
Let's not mince words. What we are seeing is darkly reminiscent of the 2013 and 2016 civil wars, which killed 400,000 people. All the dark clouds of a perfect storm have descended upon the people of the world's newest country and one of the poorest. The peace agreement is in shambles, a humanitarian nightmare, with about 3 out of 4 South Sudanese needing assistance, half the population severely food insecure, and cholera breaking out. Our UN mission in South Sudan is working around the clock to ease tensions, engaging all parties, and boosting protection of civilians.
African Union mediators, part of the Council of the Wise, arrived in South Sudan's capital Juba on Wednesday, seeking to prevent a fresh civil war after Vice President Riek Machar was put under house arrest last week. The government of President Salva Kiir accuses Mashar, a rival from the destructive 2013-2018 war, of inciting new unrest. Tensions have been escalated following weeks of conflict in the northern Upper Nile state between the military and the White Army militia, with whom Mashar was previously allied. Uganda's president landed in the country yesterday to lend a hand in the situation. The African Union's Peace and Security Council has demanded an immediate and unconditional release from Mashar, warning that the recent developments endanger the 2018 peace accord that concluded the war. So while the people of Sudan have a glimpse of peace, for the people of South Sudan, the threat of a new conflict confronts them.
Next week, the UK, Germany and France will co-host a major conference to demand a ceasefire and accountability. But crucially, neither of the warring sides has been invited, raising questions about the impact and direction of global diplomacy. As we look ahead to next week's international conference, with Sudan's warring parties excluded from the table, the question we must now ask is this: can meaningful peace or justice be achieved without engaging those directly involved in the conflict? And if not, what should the international community be doing differently to stop the suffering and end the war? Well, joining us today to discuss all this is Dr Eiman, a Sudanese researcher and expert in humanitarian work. We've also got Professor Allam Ahmed, an internationally recognised expert in knowledge management, public policy and sustainable development. We have online Dr Hashim Mukhtar, a assistant chairman of the coordination of the Sudanese National Forces. And joining me in the studio is political analyst Dr Muhammad Elamin Osman. Thank you for all of my guests for being here today on this very, very important question of Sudan. Let me start off with you, Professor Allam Ahmed. Who's really benefiting from all the chaos in Sudan?
Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a very difficult question, but if I were to answer it, I don't think I will answer it from the textbook or from any analysis in the university, because this is beyond any really. I have colleagues in the Global Policy Institute in Queen Mary University, and if you ask them, they said this is something difficult to understand. Many times we try to do some debates on this, and it's not really normal situation. But if I were to answer it from the thousands of Sudanese, I am sharing with them WhatsApp groups with the thousands of Sudanese whom every day we talk about their losses, different stories, whether they are in Egypt, whether they are in Uganda, and so on. They will point the finger at two things. Who is benefiting from this chaos is the two parties fighting to rule Sudan. And I will surprise you by saying I don't think that we already refer to the two generals, Burhan and Hemeti, are the two who are fighting to control Sudan. In my analysis, 2 years ago, and I said this, and I warned this, it's actually the civilians who are fighting to control Sudan. And I tell you why. When we had the revolution back in 2019, the entire Sudanese population, they went to the street demanding to see the back of Omar al-Bashir. London was all united. Even Dr Mukhtar, which you're going to invite, he was the chair of that, all political parties. Your guests online. All of us, we marched to Trafalgar Square, all of us demanding that. And after that, the transition government, which was led by Hamdok, it took power. Some people, they said they've been cheated, they cheated the population. Some, they said they were not legitimately took over, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line, they did not come by election. We agreed for them to rule that transition period. The summary, in my opinion, and I know many people wouldn't like this, it was awful in the way they have handled the situation. We lost more than we gained. We wanted to rebuild the Sudan. After 30 years, we all think we end up now suffering more. Now, what happened in 2019, and then 2021, and then 2022, and that's a long story. I know that's not the debate about. They are fighting until this moment to come back to power. This is the problem. Hamidok government, the transition government, they still fighting. Every talk to them, I have many times talked to them. I say, okay, fine, we agree with you. Sudan should be ruled by civil parties. No generals, no army. Agree. Sudan should be going back to square one where we have a democracy, a transition government.
Yeah.
Agree. But when you come to point 3, guys, we the Sudanese who allowed you to rule us for the transition, we don't want you now. The Sudanese people now in Uganda, they stop at that point.
Okay.
And this is where really is a problem.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate you giving us an insight into that. Dr. Muhammad, you're a political analyst. In your opinion, the time for the transitional government, as Dr. Allam Ahmed says, has gone, and it needed to have been transferred to a real civilian government. But again, what I'm not hearing is the international actors or the local actors that benefit from the chaos. Who benefits from the chaos, in your opinion?
So
certainly not the people.
No, there's no doubt about that. The people are the biggest victims of the crisis and the tragedy which we are seeing unfold and which has unfolded over the last 2 years in Sudan. And unfortunately, to the extent that not due coverage has been given, that it's been dubbed as a forgotten war.
Yeah.
And the scale of human suffering has been immense. But it's this as well which reflects, and I would add to Professor Allam, it's the simplistic view of a power struggle between two armed groups or two generals, or even a number of political groups does not give justice.
Yeah.
Sudan has either the fortune of being at the crossroads or the misfortune at being at the fault lines of an important and strategic area in North Africa, near the Horn of Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa.
Sure.
Now, these fault lines, if you look back in history, the development of the modern Sudanese state, either since independence in 1956 or the reconquest of Sudan at the end of the 19th century, or even beyond. These fault lines, many will debate that some of this is stemmed in this imposition of the modern state or the modern nation state.
Yes.
Sudan is not a simple nation state. You cannot define it by the regular natural barriers of mountainous ranges or rivers or oceans like in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And therefore, these lines in the sand are part, they're not the full story, but they are part of the tragedy which has been chronically festering in the background and with different manifestations throughout the last 7 or 6 decades without having a comprehensive solution. And some of them are growth or growing pains of a young nation. And when we come to describe even the Sudanese people, I'm one of the people who describe it as a nation of peoples in a region rather than just a singular state.
Sure.
The diversity is huge. Managing that diversity into a source of power, a source of richness, it has always been a challenge. So there's a lot of underlay present here. And then other challenges coming in. It's a very volatile region. And this is why looking at it only within the context of Sudan within its modern day borders since 1956 or even later following the independence of South Sudan in 2011 doesn't do justice. This is why we see phenomena such as mercenaries and fighters along ethnic lines from the region of the Sahel, all the way from Mali, Niger, and Chad and parts of Central Africa and southern Libya.
Yes.
And this is why we have other state actors deeply involved and invested. Egypt and Ethiopia, Eritrea, Chad, Central Africa, and even the beyond. State actors such as the United Arab Emirates, who are now facing charges and at the International Court of Justice.
It started today, didn't it? The hearing, yes.
And this is why we see a lot of this being translated on the ground in ethnic reprisals, ethnic killings, which were determined, as we know, by the US State Department with the outgoing Biden administration as acts of genocide. So therefore, there are a number of actors who want to see a weakened Sudan, because a strong Sudan or stable Sudan, and certainly a Sudan which which has a sense of purpose in the region, will be a game changer.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'll pause you on that. Really good insight, actually. But I want to go on to you, Dr. Eiman. You're a humanitarian. You've worked at organisations such as Save the Children and UNICEF, and you're an expert in this area. When I read those figures about the number of refugees, those that have displaced, millions and millions of people reliant on humanitarian assistance, do you feel that the international community has abandoned Sudan? Because we have just had a litany of states all around which are international actors that are involved in Sudan. So is there some, how is that balance between the charge that the international community abandoned Sudan, but on the same side, there's lots of other players in the region?
This actually brings me to, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to be part of your panel, and thank you for the question. This question immediately emanates from the question you just posed to my panel colleagues here. The benefits of this war, in order for you to decipher the reason, you need to go back to the reasons the war has been staged in the first place. This is not called the April War. This is the last episode of war that have started long before South Sudan has ceased to be part of the country, and when the CPA left the 3 time bombs in the shape of the 3 areas, Abyei, South Blue Nile, and Nuba Mountains, and Darfur, which started in 2003, while the CPA was signed in December 2004 and implemented 2005. The reasons are all those what experts say.
When you say CPA, you mean?
The Comprehensive Peace Agreement. It is not comprehensive, according to our analysis, and the proof is in the pudding. Look at what the repercussions are of that CPA. We cannot have any benefits in this war because every war has a cost and it has benefits. Who is benefiting? In order for me to talk about the atrocity and the numbers you just quoted are hidden numbers. I call them hidden numbers. We don't have firm statistics. People are selling arms to Sudan. Sudan is not all under arms embargo. People are benefiting from the fact that the revolution has not been allowed to have any kind of recurrence and to fulfill not the dreams, the faith of the Sudanese people in freedom, change, and peace. So those people who are benefiting are the people who did not want to see democracy in Sudan. Why they then allied with this, the 2 generals are what Freud says they are instincts and their vicissitudes. They were on together against the revolution, but now they are fighting over power and resources and unresolved, very underlying causes of conflict in Sudan that nobody has actually alluded to. In humanitarian terms, if you see the last OCHA report, they are giving you some kind of glimpses of the number of people who have been now displaced and the number of people who have crossed the border, the number of people inside Sudan who are not in IDP camps, they are not mentioned. There are people in Eastern Chad, 200,000 when they crossed the border in 2003. Nobody's talking about those people. We are talking about a number of people in the vicinity. Nobody's talking about Sudanese in Gulf state areas. There is no UNHCR system there. They have no access to any kind of immigration status or legal aid or education or health or housing for that matter. Nobody is bringing you the statistics. I cautiously use any statistics brought by anybody. But to go back to your question, why would Sudan think about other people abandoning them? We are not at mercy of anybody in the region or at international fora. This is a conflict that has geopolitical reasons and geopolitical ramifications that are affecting people locally in Sudan, people in the region, and in the international community at large. We have immense resources of gold. Sudan is the 2nd country with gold deposit. Last year alone, we exported 64 tons through the port. 80% of the gold, as we have established now, are now being used through immigration, through smuggling through the borders in illicit trade. I have launched an initiative called The Gold, the Coast and the Natural Resource. Sudan's quest for trade, not aid, have brought all the kind of the stabilization fund for Sudan that needs not to be going around asking people for donations. We can fund the stabilization fund from Sudan. We have abandoned our people, not the international community.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, that's That's a very telling response, and a response that I've not heard many people speak about in terms of Sudan itself abandoning its own people. We're going to go to a break. Before I do, I want to bring in Dr Hashim Mukhtar, the Assistant Chairman of the Coordination of the Sudanese National Forces. Assalamu alaikum, Dr Hashim. I want to ask you, you are obviously noted to be the chair of one of the reconciliation meetings in London, I believe it was. How do you now feel since that time when you see Sudan in this particular situation with awful conflict and the people of Sudan suffering?
Thank you very much for having me in your podcast or having me in your TV. And I thank your guest. And I'm here to speak about my country, which has gone through a devastating episode of conspiracy against our own land. Each country in Africa or elsewhere has got a sovereignty. Sudan is a sovereign nation. We've got a national army which has got the role of protecting our borders. We had a period of transitional government led by Hamdok, and that transitional government, they allowed the foreign hands on the conspiracies to get into the country unlicensed and to have an access to the resources of the Sudan. Any country that has got, the army which has got the role to protect the borders and to protect the rule of law and the sovereignty of the nation. What happens in Sudan now, it is a military coup which has been launched and is being orchestrated by foreign powers and which has gone wrong and had a devastating ramification in forms of a humanitarian situation, violations, and committal of human rights violation by rapid armed forces, and committal of genocide by rapid armed forces, and committal of crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Okay.
And this all has been emanated in a way that rapid armed forces has been supported by regional powers, by most of the international powers which are complicit in. They want to divide the country so as to loot the gold mines and to loot the uranium mines and to loot the resources of the Sudan.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what has been happening. Now, I don't accept the argument that says that these are two generals. We have got the commander-in-chief of the Sudan's army who's got the role to play to protect the country. This is an occupation. And this is an occupation that has to be handled in that context. Now, if this happened in the UK, if, say, God forbidden, the Republican army, the Republican Irish army invaded London, what would have happened? The British army would defend the country. Now, our army is defending the sovereignty of the Sudan and the Sudanese communities. We've got a biased situation where United Arab Emirates has been looting our gold for the last number of years, and the Emirate has got now the second biggest gold reserves in the world. They don't have a single gold mine. It's all come from the looting of the Sudanese resources. Okay. And the guys who were running the country in the transitional government, they have got blood in their hands. Emirate has blood in their hand. The UK itself has blood in their hand. And the international community has blood in their hand. Let us name things by what is happening exactly. It's a country which has been invaded by conspiracy, country which has been, they orchestrated a military coup which has gone terribly wrong, and we're defending our country. We, the majority of the Sudanese people, were now hand in hand with our Sudan armed forces as to protect and defend our land, and we will not stop supporting the country. Now, it's a waste of time of you coming to sell the narrative of the UK narrative and the narrative of the European Union and the narrative of America, that they want to invade our country and they want to loot the resources of our. Why UK is standing with United Arab Emirates in pretext that they are protecting the interests of United Arab Emirates? What happens to the human rights? What happens to the 50 million people who are living in Sudan who suffer all these atrocities?
Okay.
Not a single not a single condemnation from British government.
Okay, Dr. Hashim,
why would we keep dealing with this with a bias which is unacceptable?
Dr. Hashim, I'll have to just stop you there. I appreciate you bringing in the UK, which we'll discuss as well. But we're going to go to a very quick commercial break, and once we come back, I really want to delve into this whole issue about what happens to Sudan next. Is Sudan on the verge of collapse? Will Sudan exist as we know it or have known it? And what is the role the Muslim world should play, and also the role of our government in this country? Join me straight after this. Welcome back to The Debate. I'm your host, Patel, and today we've got a panel of experts and we're discussing the absolutely awful tragedy that's taking place in Sudan. Professor Allam Ahmed, we were speaking about who benefits from the crisis in Sudan, and lots of names came up: regional actors, international actors, and also an opinion given by Ms. Eiman about the fact that it's actually Sudanese people themselves that have a lot of the blame to share in terms of what's going on. But my next question is about the collapse of Sudan as we know it. Obviously, we had Sudan, which was historically north and south. The south split away. We've now just got the north. And even though the north was meant to have its own more peaceful existence, it's become even it's more fragmented than it was before. Do you think we'll ever see a Sudan where people can say, actually, that's a stable country? You spoke about resources, gold was mentioned, being self-sufficient. And I know Sudanese myself. When you go to the Arab world, lots of Sudanese intellectuals, and it's a really engaging community, engaging part of the Arab world. Do you think Sudan can exist, or is it going to be further fragmented?
It can exist, and I hope it will exist, and that's what we're all aiming for at two conditions. The first condition, lessons learned from what happened in Africa. There was a story about a child, I remember that, sorry, about a man. They brought him in the Netherlands, gave him an award. He has seen his dad being killed, and they took his dad and gave it to a hungry dog to eat it. And despite that, after he grown up, he said to them, I forgive you. And the reason he said, that's why he was being given a big blouse in the Netherlands in a big event. Yes. He said, if I retaliate again, you have given my dad to the dogs to eat it. I will be imprisoned in my own head. Yes. And my life is finished. I want to live. So the only way to live is to get out of hate. So that's the condition number one. If the Sudanese people can start to prepare themselves, we know we got women who have been raped. There's a difference between get my right back, you raped me, I have to get justice. Yes. And there's a difference between continue to hate each other. We have to stop hating hate, whatever it is. Justice should prevail. There's no question about this. Number two, if the Sudanese people understand and accept, all parties, what is going on, this is our own making. Any country being accused of intervening in our country, any country who is killing us, supporting the militia, is our making. These people will never be able to get into that building. I will never be able to get into this building without you allowing me. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed, and you took me and you gave me lunch. This is the case. Sudanese, they need to understand. If they don't clear the situation among themselves, it will never come back.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for being so precise in your answer. Dr. Muhammad, you're a political analyst. Do you think this approach is realistic, where Sudanese, all the different factions and the different tribes and associations within the country can actually sit down and say, well, let's forgive each other and let's move on to a better outcome? Or do you think the more sensible or more realistic approach is Sudan is split into 2 or 3 different areas, so it becomes more of a tribal society where people look after their own affairs?
So what Professor Allam Ahmed said is an ideal solution, which we'd all love to see towards a peaceful transition. On the other hand, the splitting up of the country though it might come across, and certainly there are now increasing voices about splitting Sudan into a Western entity and a central entity, these are very simplistic and they're just moving the problems forward to the future.
Okay.
They're not going to solve the problem because the diversity of Sudan is not a divide, a clean divide between Western and Central. And this diversity and this integration is much more complex than that. What we need is a political elite to learn lessons, and certainly lessons for the post-era of al-Bashir from 2019 onwards.
Yes.
We had a transitional period which was treated as a free-fall political exercise with very immature, to put it mildly, management of this transitional period. And rather than putting the basis which would have led to a transformation towards representative government through free and fair elections, it turned into an exercise in the name of justice, of settling scores against people perceived, confirmed, or falsely accused, for that matter, of being aligned with the past regime. Having said that, the past regime had lots of actors who had joined in during its latter half of the rule, including some who were involved in the revolution. So there's a bit of being quite rich about things. So we need to move on. We need this transition to happen. And one of the lessons to learn, this is a country which was one of the first in the Middle East to have political revolutions calling for civilian rule. But one of the lessons that we need to, it's not enough to depose a dictator or depose someone we dislike.
Yeah.
But it's also important to learn that we need to stop and look at our societies, because each time what's happened, the return to civilian rule has been one which has been moving towards a Westminster type of democracy.
Yeah.
We want representative government, but it doesn't have to be on the lines of Westminster. It doesn't have to be on the lines of Capitol Hill.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be on the lines of the French model. We need a model which emanates from the Sudanese people, which also doesn't leave regions feeling left out. We need a federal system, delegation of powers and devolution of powers, which will be able to cater for this diversity.
Okay.
And to look into ourselves and build upon that. But if we continue to have this political elite who actually did play a role, it wasn't just the army officers for that matter, in destabilizing the country, we're just going on the same self-destruction route.
I understand. Ms. Iman, you've heard obviously two of your Sudanese colleagues talk about a reconciliation, being realistic, talking about against the fragmentation of Sudan. How do you view things? You're obviously in touch. And also, I want you to tell us about the role of women and how much they've suffered, because I think a lot of the times we forget that perspective in terms of how females actually suffer disproportionately in all conflicts.
Yeah, to start with, God said, جعلنا لكم في الأرض مستقر ومتاع إلى حين. All human beings are supposed to be inhabiting the earth for a mission.
Yes.
That has to be something with prosperity and well-being. When something like that befalls us, calamities like this, we immediately decipher who had the action. It is not the elite. The elites have actually some kind of design in terms of history, in terms of philosophical thought, but we are looking now in Sudan and seeing not a hypothetical question whether Sudan is going to be divided, because it is already divided. Al-Hilu is actually in southern Nuba Mountains having his own kind of enclave. Abdel Wahid has his own enclave. Why are we only thinking about Sudan being divided now, while we are looking? These are all, they are all events foretold, a la Garcia Marquez.
Yes.
The Sudan is not the part of the world that you do not know what fate or what the future holds for you. From the beginning, you know exactly what is going to happen and at what time. Since the impunity in 2004 that let people in Darfur be exposed to all that rape and all that extermination, and we didn't do anything despite many United Nations Security Council resolutions, we have seen the white writing on the wall. It was just a time waiting to happen. And that is something we need to see. Now, who is actually bringing the cohesion of the society together? It is people on the ground. It is people in the emergency rooms, in the communal kitchens. It is the women who are suffering.
Tell us more.
The women actually witnessed the war being waged on their bodies. What we are writing now to everybody who is dealing with Sudan, especially our brothers and sisters inside,
yes,
who are inciting the hate speech. Our brothers and sisters in the UK, with our broken heart, they are also inciting hate speech and prosecuting people who are saying no to the war. We can solve the thing. We can bring Sudan, not in the geographical area, whether we are going to be seeing one Sudan. We seeing one Sudan in the map, or are we seeing one Sudan in our hearts, or in our minds, or in our aim and hopes for the future, where we would like our children? Now, maybe some people are listening to us at the cross borders, or in IDP camp, or in forest in Ethiopia, without having any idea after 1 minute who's going to die because of insects, or because of wild animals, or because of hunger. Women suffer disproportionately, because when you rape a woman, that is something that you igniting on you. Resolution 1888, 2009. Where is that international? I would like to ask them, why didn't you revive that? Why don't you let me see the justice that has power? Don't bring the power of justice alone. I want to see everybody have this indivisible value called justice, being there for Sudanese women, being there for Sudanese people who are now holding the society together and would like Sudan to remain as one entity, because all we can live, it can be done.
No, thank you. Very touching again. Dr. Hashim, you've heard the responses over here. In your opinion, obviously you were part of making a transition to what we have in Sudan right now. Do you believe Sudan as we see it has gone, or are you still hopeful?
I'm very hopeful. Sudan will survive. Sudan will stay put, and by the backing of the Sudanese nation to their national army, we will defend our country. Self-defense is a human right, and nobody should deny us from defending our country. There's a big conspiracy that's going on against to country to be invaded by 17 different missionaries from different countries, supported by United Arab Emirates and others, including these other countries, which are, they are yearning to have an access to the Sudanese resources. They can have the access to the Sudanese resources legally, but not by the way of invasion. Nobody would accept invasion. Invasion means we have to defend our country. I don't buy the narrative of people saying, stop the war. Why would you stop the war where my land has been occupied? Why? The country hasn't been divided. This is not the first world in Africa. Africa is raging with civil wars here and there. It is a period of difficulty, but the fact speaks for themselves. We are winning the war, and I think it is time for us to think seriously, to put a blame on those hands which are being supporting the rapid armed forces of committing all these atrocities. The international community has kept a blind eye, including the UK, kept a blind eye of all these devastated communities who are being displaced from their houses. These devastated girls who are being raped, and devastated girls who are being traded on. There's a slavery that's going on in Sudan. None of this has raised any kind of consciousness of the UK or United States or European Union. Shame, shame, shame. And Sudanese people will survive.
Okay.
We will defend our country to the last blood. And I think the narrative of Sudan being dismantled is not going to happen. No.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Hashim. I think you invoked the spirit of many a Sudanese rebellion when it was under the occupation of the British Empire as well. And let's move on to the role of the Muslim world. We know the Muslim world is mired in its own problems, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians. Everywhere you see there's some conflict or there's some major issue going on. Sudan doesn't come onto the radar for many. Maybe because the media aren't in Sudan, maybe there's just a lack of interest, whatever it is. But Sudan's a major part of the Arab and Muslim world. Do you believe that there are players in that region that should be doing more to help your country stay as one and perhaps become united again and do the reconciliation that you spoke about?
Yes, I think they are. And I do a lot of, I'm leading a big project now in the Arab countries, particularly Saudi Arabia,
yes,
with Qatar and others. And I can tell you, I have sat even having lunch or having dinner with royal princes, with ministers,
yes,
undersecretaries, senior people. And I remember in one of the dinner last 2 months, the undersecretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, when we walked into the dinner, he took me in his hand. So I can see the love they have for the Sudanese people.
Sure.
And he said in front of public, a big international gathering, about what the king said to them about how to support Sudan. He said it in public. That's why I'm saying it in public now. This is the Deputy Minister of Agriculture of Saudi Arabia. He said to me, the king.
Do you believe it's genuine? Because a lot of them have their own inter-rivalries as well.
But what I think the issue is, I was talking to Dr. Muhammad outside when we were waiting. We, the Sudanese, who are currently, like, I don't know whether it's happening or not, because I don't know, General Burhan and the people who are leading this fight, yes, which we are supporting them, they should have that conversation. I mean, Burhan was in Saudi Arabia sitting with Crown Prince.
Yes.
He's the highest person. I don't know what they're discussing there. They know the Saudi loves them. They know the Saudis, in their heart, they love the Sudanese. I have heard this many, many times.
Yes.
Last time I heard it in public, in royal family. So what Al-Burhan is saying to them, or the government, what is our senior people saying to these people? They know they love us. So it is time now we tell them, how do you want us to support us? I think that's a critical point. I don't know what is happening or not. Secondly, and I can tell you this, not only the Sudanese, they know this, but I was advisor to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed at some point. We executed with another Sudanese, Kenyan Sudanese, one of the best Sudanese, architecture and computer, the first knowledge management system in the Arab countries executed by Sudanese brains.
Yes.
So we can do it in Sudan. We had a very strong relationship with United Arab Emirates. Sheikh Zayed, he loves Sudanese. He used to go in Sudan. We have his picture. If the government really sitting down with them, telling them, look here, those people you are supporting, they are gone. They can't come back to Sudan. This is a fact.
Be realistic.
Yes. We are the one who are prevailing now. Come and tell us how we get out of this. We are giving you an opportunity. Forgive the court. Now the court started today. I don't know whether that conversation is happening or not, but I think if you go to the people who are doing international relations, they will tell you diplomatically. They said in universities they teach diplomacy. I would have that argument with that. I said, fine, look, the people you brought to give you what you want, despite all this, forget about it. We're still going to have justice, compensation, blah, blah, blah. But now, they are gone. Hamadouk is no longer can enter Sudan. This is a fact. Any Sudanese will tell you. All the previous transition government, they can't enter Sudan. Forget about if they've been abandoned or after them. But someone told me from America, if Al-Burhan opened the airport for them to come, they cannot pass through. Because the Sudanese people, they died in the heart of the Sudanese people. That's exactly what Eiman was saying. So I think the people who are in charge, I don't know who, the military, they should have this serious conversation with the Muslim people who like us, and they have serious conversation with the Emirati. They say, yes, we will continue but what do you want? Why not? Let's talk now. I think that will be a quick surgeon opening the wound. He's a doctor. He can tell you, clean it, tidy it up.
I didn't say that the revolutionaries and the government of the transition period died in the people's heart.
No. I mean, you said...
I said Sudan's idea and Sudan as an entity.
Yes.
It is something that we will hold in the spirit.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say, you want the people in our heart who is living, who is dying now. That's the important thing. In our heart, we want this Sudan to come back. We are supporting anything will bring Sudan back.
Okay. Dr. Muhammad, time is obviously short, but a lot of people in the Muslim world will look at how the Sudanese government have entered the Abraham Accords, relations with Israel. They feel there's a disconnect there, not because of Sudanese themselves. Like you said, very, very, sophisticated people they are, very well educated, got all the talents that anybody else has as well, perhaps even more. But when they see things like this, they feel less sympathetic. Do you think there's a problem there that needs to be resolved as well, so that the Muslim world feels more attached to Sudan as one ummah?
So it's good that you've mentioned the concept of the ummah. Let's take a step back. I mean, this is one of the issues which I tried to allude to when I spoke about the transitional period. A political transition should not include decisive answers or decisive measures on policy as crucial as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah.
Sudan should have not, because this government did not have an elected mandate.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no mandate to go and sign these accords. There was no mandate to deploy or to adopt certain economic or political stances. And this was the death knell for the transitional government, and which led to the mess that we're currently in.
Yeah.
It contributed big time. And this, in a way, also brings back the question of the politics of chaos in the Muslim world. What is happening in Sudan is not isolated. This is why it's always best to take a step back and look at the wider region. All of this is interconnected. We might think that our pains in Sudan are unique to us, as some of the Palestinians will feel that their pains in Gaza are unique to them. But there is no disconnect between them. And unless we look at the grander viewpoint and the vision, we will continue to fail and continue to suffer, and the price is paid by human suffering on the ground. And part of it is, and I will always make this claim, that there are actors in the region and beyond who do not want an independent, stable, self-sufficient Sudan. Not just because of Sudan, but because, as I said, we are at the crossroads of the fault lines between a northern Arabic-speaking Africa and a sub-Saharan non-Arabic speaking, between a predominantly Muslim North Africa and a predominantly non-Muslim sub-Saharan Africa. A strong Sudan will carry out a historical regional role that many do not want to see.
Okay.
And peacefully, not by arms, peacefully, as has happened over more than 500 years of history. That's a Sudan that many do not want to see.
Okay.
And that will underlie a lot of policies, even if not publicly expressed, towards Sudan and what's happening in Sudan.
Well, thank you for that. Ms. Amin, sorry about this. Time is really, really short. But I do need to ask you about the fact that what is it the people of Sudan need right now? Do they need aid? Do they need international intervention? What, in your opinion, do they need?
I mean, in my opinion, the people of Sudan would like to see that whoever is creating something to govern humanity and human relationships are doing what they are supposed to do. If I am looking at the people of Sudan request, that is not something I'm going to be saying on their behalf. This is something you know, bid-darura, as we say. This is something, it goes without saying. The people of Sudan would like their two generals to know that they would like them to stop what they are doing, because من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. So if you actually are taking one innocent life as if you are killing the whole of humankind.
Yeah.
We do not want our people who are now fighting with the two parties, they are our children in Sudan. They are selling their lives to earn their living. We want the two generals to know that it is their primary responsibility to impart this service, so that they do not, first of all, go down history as the people who are killing themselves and bringing somebody from outside. We would like the Muslim world to know that man qatala nafsan is something to do with peace. Do something about the peace agreement, please, very quickly. Unify all the platforms in the international community. Do not talk with Sudan in compartmentalization. Darfur is suffering, but it has 2736 as a resolution. Al-Ubaid is under siege for 2 years with relentless bombardment from RSF. Nobody is doing anything.
Okay.
We would like the international community and the Muslim world to know, if there are 1.7 billion Muslims, only 200 million of them can do zakat al-fitr. That could have actually aided Sudan in the humanitarian efforts. If anybody could think about our sovereign funds in terms of zakat and al-awqaf, that could have done something to us, because our Islamic world is telling us man dakhala dar Abi Sufyan fahuwa amin. They're giving any kind of sanctuary is an individual endeavor in Islam. The Muslim countries did not deal with our people in this way. We are suffering in Muslim countries now.
Thank you.
We would like them to go back to the scripture, go back to the humanity. We are not only talking about human beings. In Ibrahim kana ummah. To be a nation is not bringing all the countries who are Muslims in Sudan.
Okay.
In Sudan or outside, you can be an ummah, you yourself.
Thank you. Iman, really, really passionate. And I'm pretty sure our viewers would have been moved by hearing you say that. And it will go down quite deeply and affect a lot of people. Final word to you, Dr. Hashim. Unfortunately, time is running out very fast. You said you were hopeful. You said, there needs to be a new Sudan. You spoke out against those that are dividing Sudan. Tell us about where you feel we're going to be in a year's time. Do you think the conflict will have hopefully resolved itself?
Okay, that's why I would say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is a message for the Muslim world at large. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in محكمة تنزيله ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. الذي يجري في السودان, what is happening in Sudan is a disaster that we need your support.
Yeah.
We need the support of all the human beings in this earth, in this planet. We need the support of the international community. Sudan is a thriving community. Sudan is a relatively educated comparatively with the rest of the African countries. And we've got a good enterprise and good intention of doing human rights, rule of law, and government and good governance. We've got a lot of resources. There will be a big benefit for the international community at large if the Sudan is stabilized. Nonetheless, I would blame these countries who are conspiring against us. We are a very strong nation. We have got the challenge in front of our hands. The impediment is these conspiracies which has been done on the pretext of protecting the interests of United Arab Emirates, allowing themselves to support rapid armed force militia. These are militias. These are militias. There's no, I disagree with your guest who's saying that two generals. It's not two generals. It is a Sudanese government against militia rebels from 17 different countries, which are supported by United Arab Emirates, and that is that. So we have to name things clearly, and it's abundantly clear that they are beating, and we are winning, and we will have our country back.
Okay, well, on that point, I will ask you to stop. I want to thank all my guests for giving such valuable contributions. I know sometimes time is very short and we're always rushing through, but I think every single one of you said words which should impact, and hopefully the people of Sudan can have a much better future. Folks, that's all we've got time for. I've been Maz Patel. This has been The Debate. But let's not take our eye off the problems in Sudan. It's a huge nation, a very important nation in the Arab and Muslim world, has a great history of, go and research it. I've seen it myself. A long history as well, and it's deeply incorporated into the Muslim Ummah. Let's hope and pray that relief comes to that people. This has been a really, really fascinating debate. Thank you for joining me, and see you again soon.